Oh, hello, hello, and I'm back here live. Yes, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. As always, let me just check and make sure everything is okay on my phone. You know, there's always a little delay here, but I will just switch off that volume. We don't want to get disturbed. My computer is off. So hopefully no disturbances today. So thank you everyone so much for joining me today. I hope you're all having a fabulous, beautiful day today. Can you believe the middle of March already? And we're in National Quilting Month. So yes, I am Michael Smith, the National Education Manager of Janome, Canada, and back to you from my palatial estate in Collingwood. I'm about 2 hours north of Toronto. And I'm back here on the Janome Sewing Machines Facebook page and Janome Canada Facebook page, Janome America YouTube, and Janome HQ, that's our Janome Canada YouTube channel, to share with you more about some quilting tips and tricks. And particularly, I'm here to show about the utility stitches that are built into virtually every Janome machine out there. You know, the more sophisticated and more expensive our machines get, yes, we just get more and more stitches, a lot of decorative stitches, a lot of specific stitches, like in the quilting category, we have dedicated 1/4 of an inch stitches, for example, and the machine does a lot of the thinking for us. But even our most basic entry-level Janome machines has a lot of these utility stitches that we can do so much with. Definitely more versatility with. So no further ado, because you know the time goes by so fast. I'm trying to hurry along. So yes, that I am back here today on my fabulous Janome Skyline S7 AE Anniversary Edition machine. And again, there's so many stitches. Oh, I think there's 350 stitches built into the Skyline S7 AE, but mainly what we're going to focus on are the first couple of screens, the utility category. As we get into, again, more sophisticated machines and our beautiful LCD screen, the utility stitches, as soon as you turn on your machine, these utility stitches will be the first category. Then we get into buttonholes, then we get into decorative stitches, and so on. Again, here in our lid, if you see there, our utility stitch category is always going to be category number 1 in all of our machines, no matter how fancy and expensive they get. And then again, buttonholes, and then we get into the various categories. Now, as I mentioned, we do have some specific stitches, like for example, when I go into the quilting category. If you were here with me yesterday, then yes, was talking about our 1/4 of an inch seam. Well, we have a dedicated stitch. It moves the needle over, it adjusts the stitch width and length. Like, isn't that a wonderful time-saving, convenient feature? Let the machine do some thinking for you. But again, if you say, oh no, I just have a very basic entry level, you know, my first Janome machine 33 years ago was the early predecessor of what's now known as the HD 1000. You can all go on janome.com and janome.ca to check it out, or depending on where you are in the world, go to your Janome respective website and check out the HD 1000. It has 14 stitches, very basic machine, mechanical, but it got me all through fashion design school, and I sewed on that machine up until I bought my fabulous Memorycraft 15,000 several years ago. And that machine, again, no matter how basic, these utility stitches, for example, a straight stitch, we can do so much with a straight stitch. Now, here on my Skyline S7 AE, the default center needle position is 4.5 because it's 9 mm wide that I can do my stitches. And then the suggested average stitch length is for 2.4, but I can totally adjust that. For example, with a regular straight stitch, most of our seaming would be done just with this configuration. But depending on your machine, can you adjust your stitch length, for example? So instead of 2.4, I can go down to 1.8 is how I like to piece my quilts, for example. So in many of our machines, depending on how you adjust them, maybe to touch screen, or maybe you've got a mechanical machine, up here, you've got the dials and you're adjusting stitch width and length. So with center needle position, using our good old A foot, the zigzag foot on every machine, doesn't matter which one it is, they're all known. The lettered presser feet are all the same. So the zigzag standard presser foot is the A foot on every machine. Now, did you know here on my 9mm wide Skyliner 7 AE, there's a little tick mark right here. It's about where this plastic meets the metal. That is 1/4 of an inch from center needle position to that little tick mark is 1/4 of an inch. So when I snap on my foot here, I just don't want to get my thread caught in that. When I snap on my foot here, then I am going to line up my fabric to that little tick mark. Now, coincidentally, it also lines up, or maybe it's not so coincidentally. There is a tick mark here on my patented needle plate, a tick mark here on the bobbin cover, a tick mark here on the bobbin cover, and a tick mark down here in the needle plate. That is 1/4 of an inch. And again, if you were with me yesterday, I went over this. If not, you can go back to our respective Facebook pages and the respective YouTube channels to find out more information. So when I start sewing here, again, I've lined up that tick mark of my presser foot. Now here I'm sewing this little pocket of a tote bag, one of these reusable shopping bags that we're supposed to carry with us. I always leave mine out in the car, but I'm making a little tote bag here that I can fold up in my pocket and take to the store with me. So this is going to be a little pocket. And again, I'm just sewing 1/4 of an inch. We could sew the 1/4 of an inch for all of our quilt piecing. Again, with our regular A foot with that little tick mark that lines up with the marks on our needle plate for our 1/4 of an inch. So boom, just with a simple adjustment of our machine. I had to leave myself an opening so I can flip my pocket right side out. But again, our beautiful 1/4 of an inch seam. Now, sure, in my machine comes with the O foot with a guide. Optional for many of our machines as well. We have an O foot without a guide. Or again, we've got dedicated 1/4 of an inch feet, like the clear view foot, 1/4 of an inch seam foot with a really long guide. Now, this foot is only available for 9mm machines. There is the part number there if you would love to order it from your fabulous Janome dealer. Again, it's got the advantage of it's clear, it's got several markings, so that's an option. If you want a dedicated 1/4 of an inch foot, or this is a clear view quilting foot and guide set. It's the OV foot. Now, I demonstrated all of these lettered presser feet on the A to Z with Janome series on the Janome HQ YouTube channel, so you can go back and check those out. This has the advantage, there is a ditch quilting guide, or I just simply loosen that screw and then I can attach the 1/4 of an inch guide. We would move the needle over to the 1/4 of an inch and then run along our fabric against that guide. So this is a multi-purpose foot, the Clearview quilting foot and guide set. Now this foot is available for 9 and 7mm. So double check with your Janome dealer. There is the part number there for this Clearview quilting foot and guide set with the ditch quilting guide and the 1/4 of an inch guide. So again, there's many different 1/4 of an inch feet options. Or again, if your machine's a little more basic and maybe you don't have one of those 1/4 of an inch feet, just with center needle position, line it up to the tick mark on your foot. Maybe you have these marks on your needle plate, or there's typically, even if your needle plate isn't quite as advanced as this, you'll have some markings. So then you can do your 1/4 of an inch, boom, so easy. So that's just a simple straight stitch. Now, of course, we could get into sometimes when we're holding our layers together, maybe we're going to do some gathering, you know, the old-fashioned way. We take our fabric. Let's say we're going to set in a sleeve, in which case we would only use one layer of fabric if we're going to set in a sleeve. And we would take our regular straight stitch, and instead of that 1.8 stitch length, well, now we can increase it. All of our Janome machines will stitch up to 5 millimeters in length. So just with that regular utility straight stitch, well, now I'm lengthening my stitch. So it's more of a basting stitch. So then I can, it's a longer stitch. And then again, those pattern directions say you pull your threads to, again, gather this up. So I can make some pleats, some ruffles, or again, if I just do it a little bit to set in that sleeve. So regular utility straight stitch, we can do so much with it. But then, of course, we can do more. So, of course, I have more utility stitches in my Skyline S7AE, but in most machines, for sure, we got that straight stitch. This stitch, number 5, you'll see 3 lines of stitching. Well, that is a triple stretch stitch. So if we are using it in woven fabric, for example, a lot of these stitches have multi-purposes. So again, I'm just using my regular old A-foot here. So for woven fabric, this is great because instead of, 3 parallel lines of stitching, as our LCD screen shows, this is going back and forth 3 times in the same line. It's going back and forth on itself 3 times. So this is a great utility stitch. Again, in woven fabrics, it adds more buildup. So one, we could use it as a decorative stitch because of that buildup. It looks very beautiful, more pronounced. But also, it's a very firm seam because of that extra buildup of thread there. So that's a great use. For example, in, again, my tote bag here, then we could use, I didn't use it in this case, but it would have been a great time for me to use it right here to add more stability in my tote bag. So that would be a great use for it. Or again, it's called a triple stretch stitch. So in our knit fabrics where we have this stretch, this is a great time to use this, particularly when we're sewing, if we've got, leggings and we've got the crotch seam, or in, shirts, we've got the underarm seam in particular, where a lot of stress, we're sewing the sleeves, and especially around the elbows with a lot of stretch and a lot of stress. We don't want the seams popping. So by having that buildup back and forth, it still allows the stretch of our seam without ripping. So that's a great use of that, again, triple stretch stitch. Now, right next to it, I have these 2 little lightning zigzag stitches, as I love to call them. This M represents middle needle position. The L represents left needle position. Now, these are also, because of that jagged zigzag, that is also a great stitch to use for not only, again, on woven fabric, it would be great to beef up your seam a little bit, strengthen your seam, but in knit fabrics in particular, it looks like a straight stitch because it's such a narrow little zigzag, and it stitches more, instead of a wide zigzag, which we're, I think, all used to, this stitches kind of on an angle down. So again, it looks like a straight stitch, but it gives us that stretch. And again, it looks like a straight stitch. So let me just quickly cut this off so I can open this fabric. So you can see there is my seam, but again, when I open it up, it looks like a regular straight seam. So these lightning zigzags, as I call them, great for our knit fabrics. Now, where do we find all this information? Well, of course, we're trying to get more and more videos on the Janome, respective Janome YouTubes. Janome Life blog is a great resource for all things Janome, so go there. But look, in our instruction manuals, for example, here for my Skyline S7AE, variety of straight stitches, and they're going through the various stitches. Here we just talked about that triple stretch stitch. There it is, stitch number 5. That's what it looks like as a drawing. There's the description when, oh look, to reinforce the crotch and armhole seam, just as I mentioned. Or there, the stretch stitches, the utility 6 and utility 7, the little lightning zigzags is what I call them. But again, very narrow, great for knits, again, that still allow that stretch. So in our instruction manual, you will find more and more info about zigzag stitches, for example, that I will talk about, basting stitches. Again, you'll find more, oh yes, the overcast over edge stitches, which I will talk about. You will, again, find so much information in your instruction manual. Janome is really doing more and more and more to give you as much information out there as possible. You just have to read your manual. So yes, there is, and again, Janome Life blog and more videos. So as we go into our utility category, and again, I am flying through this because there is just so much information out there. You can always go back and review this presentation when needed. So here, again, as we get into our zigzag stitches, again, M means middle needle position, R means right needle position. So it has swung my needle over to the right. So if I want to do some zigzag stitches, again, to the right, now we can always go in as well. Here is the suggested. I always recommend doing these little test samples. So my default here, my little zigzag, and maybe I'm going to finish the edge, the raw edge of my fabric this way. Maybe, again, for knit fabrics, we could use this little zigzag as well, especially like think of children's wear. You need lots of stretch and lots of stability. So maybe we'll use this zigzag to, again, finish the edge of our fabric or maybe construct in a knit garment. The default is 3.0 wide, but again, in most cases, we can adjust our stitches. Sometimes they go up to 7.0, as this case. Other times we can adjust them to maybe 9.0 based on the width of our needle plate. The suggested length is 1.5, but sometimes we can make that even longer. So again, we can really customize. It's the same stitch, the same good old-fashioned zigzag, but with the adjustments we can commonly make on most machines, even the most basic Janome machine, we can typically adjust the width and the length to a certain degree. So they're the exact same stitch. They look entirely different based on our adjustments of our machine. So in this case, maybe for this tightly woven fabric, I only need this tiny little zigzag to finish off the raw edge of my fabric. But maybe in a nice thick, wool or velvet, something textured, terry cloth, for example, I might need this bigger, wider zigzag in order to finish off that thicker fabric. So we can do a lot with a regular utility stitch, regular old zigzag, just by changing the settings. Now here on my LCD screen, stitch number 10 is a zigzag, but you'll see it's got a couple of dash lines. So I refer to this as a multi-step zigzag. It's also known as a tricot stitch. So again, tricot is kind of a fancy French word for knit, basically. So a knit, again, these knit fabrics, yes, you can sew knits on your sewing machine with the correct needle, like a ballpoint needle, a stretch needle, and yes, having the correct stitch. So in this case, that multi-step zigzag is a great stitch to use because, again, it's going to give us that stretch. So it does a couple of different, instead of just the swing of the needle and the swing of the needle, it does a couple of little stitches back and forth in between. So just that you can see, and again, do your little test samples here so you see the difference. Here again, I've got a couple of little stitches in between. So knit fabrics, great. I love using this multi-step zigzag though when this is flex foam that I use in my tote bags, for example, to give some stability. So I love, I save everything. So that's the joy of sewing. We can save everything. And I need to piece these two layers together. So all I do is butt them together. And then with that multi-step zigzag, it just helps give it a little more stability holding these layers together. I also love using the multi-step zigzag. And again, there is my default. But yes, we can adjust the settings of our machine. I like a wider zigzag and a longer zigzag, and I butt my layers of batting together and hold them together so they're nice and flat. But because of that multi-step zigzag, it's just a little more secure than a regular zigzag. Is just one long floating stitch and then another long floating stitch. In this application, I want that multi-step zigzag or that tricot stitch to hold these layers a little more together. They're very stable. So again, to hold batting together, I love to use that multi-step zigzag, or again, it's known as the tricot stitch. So let's jump ahead to, oh yes, let's get into, another stitch I love to use for that butting together fabrics is the box stitch. As it's down and across and down and across, is kind of a variation of the zigzag. And you'll see there is my default setting of 5.0, but I could make it even bigger to, in this case, I think I did a 7.0. So again, the box stitch is another great stitch to use when you want to join two pieces of fabric together. This would be great for, vinyls and even leather, or again, for batting. I love using it, and it's nice and flat. Doesn't distort the fabric at all. So that is a great stitch. Now, yes, as usual, time is, my enemy, always. When did I use that box stitch as well? Here, I'm making this tote bag, and I need some straps. So I folded in my little strip all together, but then using that box stitch, and my machine is telling me I should stitch or switch to my F foot, or our F2 foot is the satin stitch foot. Most machines come with the F foot, the satin stitch foot that has the bar across, a little divot in the front to say center needle position. It's got that groove in the backside, so our decorative stitches can form more easily. So when I quickly switch this over, now if your machine didn't come with this foot, it is available separately in a blister pack. Let's snap on the foot. There we go. And then, boom, this strap conveniently works out to 1/2 inch. Oh, look, there's a tick mark on my needle plate and a tick mark on my needle plate that is 1/2 inch apart. So it works out really good. And then again, I'm going to line up my strip. In this case, it works with that 1/4 inch markings on my needle plate as well. So I'm just going to line that up very quickly. Now, if your machine has a cloth guide, many of ours either comes with, or you can get a cloth guide available, which would also help. They often screw into the needle plate. The metal cloth guide screws into the needle plate. Or here on my Skyline S7 AE, I have a cloth guide that will clip into the back of this extension table, and it'll run along the bed of the machine and act as a nice fence to keep this nice and straight. So here to do this, again, box stitch. Well, at 5.0, I'd like it a little bigger, because instead of doing a line of straight stitch down this side and a line of straight stitch down that side, I decided, wouldn't it be kind of fun to use this box stitch And instead of 2 lines of straight stitching, I just have 1 line going right across the whole thing. So whenever you adjust your machine, make sure that you take your needle out of your fabric. And I'm going to do it all the way up to 9.0. And again, very quickly, but this way, again, it just prevents me from having to do 2 lines of stitching. I can do this whole strap with 1 line of stitching. So it's just, again, another great use of saying, when will I use that box stitch? Well, maybe here, just to hold this strip together. So again, it's all folded in, and instead of 2 parallel lines of stitching, I use the box stitch. So it's just a good excuse to try your different stitches. But yes, I wanted to show as well the wonderful, in many machines, we have these fabulous overcasting or over edge stitches. Stitch number 14, for example, that's kind of on an angle. That is a great stitch to use for, again, knit fabrics. So yes, we can, now knits aren't going to ravel, but we can actually seam the knit together and then help finish the edge off to look a little more professional. Now, many of our machines come with either the M foot or the similarly designed C foot. They have these stitch fingers, which are just the same principle as the stitch fingers of our sergers. And again, sergers and knits go together beautifully, but if you don't have a serger, or if you just have a small repair, maybe you don't want to lug your serger out and have to thread it. So instead, you can use these overcast and over edge stitches. And I'm just cutting some more fabric here, that you can use these to finish off your edges, and they look very professional. And again, it's going to help add a little bit more stability to the seam. So in which case, I just, boom. And because my machine is all set up for me, in this case, I just push a button and I don't have to worry about adjusting my machine. But again, depending on your machine, you double check your instruction manual, how to, set up your machine. If it's a mechanical machine, you just turn the dial to the stitch and you select the correct presser foot. It'll tell you which one to use. There, doesn't that look so beautiful? So it's producing the seam here, plus its help of finishing that edge off. How beautiful is that? So knit fabrics, yes, absolutely. We can use the good old-fashioned knit stitch. It's a casting over edge stitch. It's number 14. It's, again, slanted, so we can identify it. Now, all of these stitches, there are 13, 15, 16, 17. These are all overcasting, again, over edge stitching. 15, for example, that has some extra zigzags, for example. I won't be able to demo all of them because time is just my enemy. But again, we can do our seaming. I'll just use this sample quickly. We will use, again, stitch 15 in this case. It does the straight line so it can seam our fabric together, and it will overcast this edge, and it does these little zigzags. Let me just cut that thread. It'll do these little zigzags. So if we have a really ravelly fabric, think of your chiffons and your very delicate sheer fabrics, and they just ravel just by looking at them. So we have a variety of these overcast or over edge stitches that will accommodate. Now, naturally, the more sophisticated our machine, the more selection of these utility stitches we have. Look at how beautiful that is. And look, no wispy raw edges because of those extra little zigzags. It provides more stability, more durability. It just looks so professional. So again, yes, we could do this similarly on a serger, but if we don't have a serger, or again, it's only a little seam, we don't have to lug the serger out. So that is wonderful. Another one that's, again, kind of more basic here is number 13. And again, do the line of stitching and then that zigzag stitch. So it's a great way to finish off the edge. We could still do our regular 5/8 of an inch seam line, and then we would just do, maybe in this case, I might just finish the one raw edge. So we could still finish off one raw edge of fabric, and then we would, finish off the other raw edge. And then I would seam these two pieces together. So then when we press our seams open, again, let's say both are finished. Again, my time is just racing by, so I won't be able to finish. But again, how beautiful that would be. So we could press the seam allowance open. It looks very professional, adds more durability. We can launder the garment, no problem. When I studied fashion design in college, my sewing teacher always said, the garment must look as good on the inside as it does on the outside. So therefore, finishing off the raw edges in some way, a serger is great, but if not, look at all these beautiful variety of overcast and over edge stitches. And we can use them for something so small as this cute little pin cushion, which I showed last week. Then in Miriam's instruction, it's a free project on janome.ca and janome.com, developed by the fabulous Miriam Coffey from Janome America. And Miriam's instructions to finish this raw edge of the elastic. She said, oh, you could just use a lighter and burn that raw edge so it won't ravel. Well, I could do that, although I quit smoking years ago. So I thought, no, I don't want any more lighters. But I still love having dinner by candlelight. So I still do have a lighter. But yes, I thought, no, instead, I'm going to use again, we've got all of these stitches built into our machines. And so many times people say, when am I going to use them all? So how about using one of the overcasting stitches just to finish off that edge of the elastic? Something so simple, so little, it wouldn't be a big deal if I didn't finish them at all. But we got the stitches, we might as well use them. So there, boom, just to finish off the edge of the elastic for my little pin cushion. So they're so versatile, these utility stitches. Now, one foot I have to demo is one of my most favorite, the G foot, the blind hem foot. It has this center rudder down the center of the foot. And I love these engineering of these Janome feet is just mind-boggling to me. Whoever developed them is just a genius. So blind hem is another stitch. Again, no matter how basic your Janome machine, we often have a couple built into our machine. So here is the blind hem. It does straight stitching, and then it does this bite, this zigzag, then straight stitching and the bite. And again, the LCD screen is telling me for the G foot. Let me just grab some fabric very quickly. So our blind hem, I've demoed, and again, the A to Z with Janome series, it's the G episode. So blind hem, our right side down, we fold up our hem, and then we just pinch it like that. So I've got my wrong sides, but I expose a little bit of my hem here, and we're taking that zigzag bite into this fold. And then the straight stitch will be along my regular, just one layer of fabric. Now, this is where, again, I could finish off the edge of this fabric with that over edge, overcast stitch first. Then I could do this blind hem foot. This blind hem, again, very quickly, just to get started. Oops, and we want to make sure, I don't want to do that too narrow. I've got to make sure to leave some of the fabric hanging over here. We're going to do the straight stitching. Again, things don't work when you're rushing. I'm going to do the straight stitching on this flat piece, and then I'm going to jump over with the zigzag into the bite. And the more that the needle bites over into that fold, the more it will show on the right side. So we only just want to really take a small little bite. So again, there it does the straight stitching and then it bites into that fold. So on the right side, especially with this pattern fabric, we really don't see it at all. If we see it a tiny bit, as I do right there, again, in match, if I used a black thread, for example, I'd never see it. But even if we see that, that's not objectionable. So that, very quickly, is a blind hem. But I love this foot, this G foot, for edge stitching. So we take, instead of the regular blind hem stitch, we go back to our, let's scroll back to our regular straight stitch. And instead of that center needle position, I'm going to move my needle to the left at 1.0 is what I love personally. We have to move the needle over so it doesn't hit that fence that's in the middle of our foot. And this is when I love using it. I'm making straps for my tote bag, for example. So my long strip of fabric, I have butted to make these beautiful samples. There we go, these beautiful straps. So again, I folded my straps in, whatever your directions say. So then I'm going to do these long rows of straight stitching. Now, since I'm going through multiple layers, instead of that 2.4, I like stitch length. I like to personally go down to, or go up to 3.0. It's a longer stitch. And look at how fast and how easy that is. I am aligning the edge of my fabric up against that center rudder of the foot. And I go down one side and then I'll quickly spin around the other. I love doing this for edge stitching, for top stitching, just by moving the needle over to 1.0. And again, I'm butting my fabric up against that metal guide, so it works out to about 1/8 of an inch. Perfect for edge stitching. Top stitching is typically about 1/4 of an inch from the edge. Look how perfect that is. And that's the G foot, the blind hem foot. So again, with our basic utility stitches, there is so much we can do, so much versatility. As usual, there's more. With Janome, there's always more. So I'll have to come back and do more, maybe utility stitches part 2, because there's even more. Again, as we go up the Janome line, there's more and more in that category, all designed to save you time and just make all your sewing faster and easier with more professional results. But again, even our most basic Janome machines come with a lot of those utility stitches, and there's so much we can do with them. So much versatility. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining me today. I hope you have a very fabulous day. I will see you all next week. Bye.